On July 6, 1944, in Hartford, Connecticut, between 6,000 and 7,000 people crowded under a canvas city for an afternoon show of fun. Lions, acrobats, the flying Melindas, all beneath the heat of the greatest show on earth. 8 minutes later, the tent was gone, and unfortunately so were 167 others. Hundreds more were injured, and the rest scrambled for their lives. This is the Hartford Circus Fire, the day joy turned to nightmare, and the country learned that waterproof is not fireproof. In 1944, America was at war. Fathers were overseas, and mothers worked double shifts in factories, and children grew up on ration books. Entertainment was scarce, so when the circus came to town, it wasn't just a show, it was an escape. Ringling Bros and Barnum Bailey was the biggest circus in the world. Posters called it the greatest show on earth, and its arrival in Hartford was like a holiday. Families lined the streets to see circus trains unload lions, elephants, and elaborate tents. But even the circus felt the strain of the war. Supplies were short, trains ran late, and labor was thin. On July 5th, the Hartford matinee had been canceled. A bad omen in circus lore. Still, on the morning of July 6th, the big top went up on Barber Street. The tent was massive, about 200 feet wide and nearly 450 feet long, and about 48 feet high at the crown. Inside were 3 rings, animal cages, and enough bleachers and folding chairs to seat close to 9,000 people. The ground beneath was grass and dirt, dampened with water and covered with hay and shavings. Steel animal chutes, narrow fenced tunnels, circled the rings to guide big cats safely back to their cages. But the most dangerous detail was overhead. The canvas roof had been brushed with paraffin wax dissolved in gasoline, the standard waterproofing of the era. It kept out the rain, but it turned the tent into a fuse. Ringling knew fire was always a risk. Just 2 years earlier, a blaze in the circus menagerie had killed dozens of animals. Though no people, Hartford would prove that people were not immune. Thursday, July 6th was blistering. Temperatures climbed into the 90s. The circus grounds, filled with families, soldiers on leave, and factory workers hoping for an afternoon escape. At 2:15, the matinee began. First came the lions, handled by May Kovar and Joseph Walsh, inside steel cages. And then the flying Walindas climbed the high wire, performing their dangerous stunts far above the crowd. At 2:40, however, smoke was seen rising along the southwest side of the tent. Some said they smelled something sharp just before. A flame flickered on the canvas, and at first, a few just thought it was a part of the act. A boy later told investigators that he believed it was a signal for the clowns. That illusion lasted only seconds. The fire began to climb. The band leader, Merle Evans, gave the only coded alarm he could. He ordered the band to play the Stars and Stripes Forever. To circus crews, it meant disaster. Ringmaster Fred Badna took the microphone and urged the audience to stay calm. But the power failed, and his voice was cut off. Ushers scrambled for the water buckets staged beneath the bleachers. They hurled them at the flames, but the fire had already reached the roof. The wax and gasoline mixture turned the canvas into fuel. Witnesses never described the fire as creeping. They said it raced. One survivor compared it to 100 blowtorches, and another said that the roof itself was on fire, dropping down on us. Why didn't they just walk out? People would ask later. In a circus tent, exits are simple until panic makes them impossible. Other exits existed, but at least 2 were blocked by animal chutes. Those steel runaways, waiting for lions and tigers, became cages across escape routes. Parents hoisted children over the bars, hoping someone on the other side would catch them. A woman recalled, "I threw my son over the chute and prayed. Then I ran through myself." On the bleachers, people jumped to the ground, crawling under the sidewalls of the tent. Folding chairs toppled into tangled heaps. Ropes snapped and poles swayed. Handlers rushed to drive the big cats into wagons. Most of the animals escaped with minor burns. Survivors remember strangers lifting children over barriers or cutting holes in the canvas with knives, fingernails, or even their teeth. 11-year-old Maureen Kurikian was pulled through a slit by another child. She immediately turned back and pulled someone else through. But not everyone moved. Parents ran into smoke from missing children, and others froze in their seats, waiting for firefighters. Seconds slipped away. Outside, police heard the sound of the crowd. One officer said, "It was 1,000 voices at once, and then silence." From first flame to total collapse, it was about 8 minutes. The roof gave away. Burning paraffin dripped like candle wax, igniting fires below. Center poles cracked and crashed, and when fire engines reached the lot, the big top was already gone. The smoke carried across Hartford. People a mile away thought that the whole city was on fire. Firefighters dragged bodies from under the smoldering canvas. Survivors stumbled into the streets, their clothes burned and their skin blistered. Hospitals filled within minutes. Schools, churches, and the state armory were converted into makeshift wards and morgues. Families lined up outside, waiting to identify the dead. By nightfall, the official toll was set at 167. 167 lives lost, with more than 700 injured. Some lists state 168 or 169, but unfortunately that's due to partial remains blurred by the count. Wartime chaos and free tickets handed out meant that the true number may never be known. At choke points near the exits, investigators later found bodies stacked dozens deep. Survivors described it as a wall, not of chairs, not of canvas, but of people. And one photograph became the symbol of the day. Emmett Kelly, the clown, Weary Willie, in full makeup, carrying a bucket through the ruins. Newspapers calling it the day the clowns cried, giving it its infamous name. The numbers are brutal, but the stories are worse. Carol Tillman Parrish was 6 years old. Even 70 years later, she said that she could still smell the burning. 13-year-old actor Charles Nelson Riley escaped with his aunt. He lived, but he carried the fear forever. Crowds and theaters never felt safe again. Frida Pushnik, known as the Armless and Legless Wonder, was carried out by another performer. She survived and returned to the circus for years afterwards. And unfortunately in the morgue lay a child, who became a symbol. Officials announced that she was Eleanor Emily Cook, 8 years old and reburied beside her brother. But her family and some researchers disputed the claim, pointing to differences in dental records, age, and appearance. Even today, not everyone agrees who Little Miss 1565 really was. The official cause was never proven. Many investigators believed that it was a dropped match or a cigarette, although some suspected arson. In 1950, a teenage roustabout named Robert Dale Seegey confessed, saying nightmares of a flaming horse told him to set fires. He later recanted and was never tried for Hartford, and went all the way to his grave denying it. Back in 1944, prosecutors moved quickly. 5 Ringling officials were indicted for involuntary manslaughter, and 4 were convicted. Sentence ranged up to a few years, but all of them were later pardoned. Civil lawsuits nearly bankrupted the company, and over the next decade, Ringling paid out around $5 million to victims and families. Accountability fell not on a single match, but on a system. Flammable waterproofing, exits blocked by cages and chairs, and inspections that never came. After the tragedy, Hartford forced America to confront fire safety. Cities began to require flame-retardant fabrics for tents, smoking was banned under canvases, exit routes had to remain open, and real inspections became law. But Hartford wasn't the only warning. 2 years earlier, in 1942, the Coconut Grove nightclub fire in Boston killed 492 people when locked exits and flammable decor trapped crowds. Together, Coconut Grove and Hartford forced lawmakers to act. The National Fire Protection Association codified new standards for tents and temporary structures. Aisles had to be clear, exits marked and lit, and the materials flame-resistant. These codes became global models. Today on Barber Street, a circle of trees and a bronze memorial mark where the Big Top stood, and each July 6th, the names are read aloud. Families still gather, passing on the lesson. Waterproof is not fireproof. Exits must stay clear, and in a fire, 8 minutes is everything. Hello everyone. As always, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. If you're new around here, welcome, and I hope you enjoyed as well. I post new videos every weekend, usually shooting for Friday or Saturday around 6 to 7 EST. If you did enjoy today's video, please like, comment, and maybe even consider subscribing. It really helps push these videos out there and it gets them in front of more people. Any feedback or recommendations, drop them in the comments and I'll get to them there. If you want to watch something similar, check out my last video I did on Edgewood Arsenal, the time where US soldiers were used as guinea pigs. That's all I have for this one. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.